My guest today is Susan Stein, an art teacher in Texas. She's had a side hustle for 7 or 8 years where she's taught after school art clubs, vacation break camps, and summer art camps. Since the coronavirus pandemic has hit, she had to pivot, and she had to pivot hard. She had never taught online, and now she's teaching 3 hours a day virtually. Let's hear what she has to say.
My school actually has closed. I taught at a private school,
Mm-hmm.
and they decided to actually shut the school down
Yep.
permanently.
Yep.
So I was not working. So that happened beginning of February. So wasn't wasn't teaching in school for about a month,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always had this other part of my job where I do my own thing and I do my own classes.
Mm-hmm.
The first couple of weeks I was doing this, I was working myself to death because
Mm-hmm.
it was so stressful just
Yep.
figuring stuff out. And like there was a point where I hadn't actually opened the door to my house for like 3 days,
Mm.
and I was starting to like really feel horrible just from
Yeah.
a physical perspective
Right.
too,
Yeah.
because I hadn't been outside.
Mhm.
Um, but every day I go to the gym, and obviously my gym is closed,
Mhm.
and I haven't. I didn't make the effort to replace that with something else,
Yep.
and that definitely took a toll on me.
Yep.
So now I try every day to just be outside at least and get some sunshine,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
or take a walk around just up and down the block. At least just
Mhm.
move something.
Yeah, it makes a big, big difference. Big difference. I mean, for me, yeah, huge difference to go outside every day.
Huge difference. I'm feeling
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm feeling now that I'm like in my fifth week of doing this, I'm feeling a lot calmer and more in control,
Mhm.
and more, just getting more comfortable with the format,
Mhm.
has improved, helped my mental health as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's just less stressful now. But
Mhm.
the first couple weeks were really, really hard, very
Oh, I
stressful.
bet, because you're doing something completely new,
It was completely new, and
and you jumped
believe that I
in.
even, oh my God, it's like trial by fire.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I was just working like 24/7. I was like, some nights I'm like up all night trying to figure something out. You go down those rabbit holes.
Mhm.
Oh, I really want to get this done, and 6 hours later, it's like 4 in the morning, and you're like,
Yeah.
I maybe should go to sleep. I'm not doing that anymore. But I was
That's
doing that
good.
before, and it was really taking a toll. I was just like, I can't live like this.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've always run a spring break camp. It's been very, very popular. I started signing people up for spring break camp maybe mid-February, so maybe about 4 weeks in advance. And
Mhm.
so the virus wasn't really,
Yeah.
nothing was really being heard of.
Mhm.
It was like somewhere else. It wasn't here in the
Yeah.
United States.
Right.
So nobody was really worried about it. And had sign up, sign up, sign up. So by middle of March, I think camp was supposed to start March 16th.
Mhm.
So the week before March 16th,
Mhm.
I started getting a couple of emails. Are you still running
Yeah.
camp? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of parents later in the week say, I'm just not really comfortable with this. We don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? I signed all these people up. I took their money. I have a
Yeah.
space. I've got supplies, and I have like these special guest artists coming, and oh my God, we have to do this. So I tried to
Yeah.
like hold on to this thing as long as possible, kind of fighting the flow.
Mhm.
And of course that never works, but we all do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Sure.
It's like our natural human tendency, want to hold on to this stuff. And so I think it was Friday when I was just like, yeah, no, yeah, this isn't going to work. We can't do this. And I was talking to my daughter on the phone, and I said, oh my gosh, this is such a nightmare. What am I going to do? And she says, just hold it online. And I said, what? And she's like, just run the thing online, Mom. It's no big deal. You know, she's 26, so it's no
Yeah.
big deal, right? And like, I'm like, what do you mean it's no big deal? I don't even know the first thing about holding a class online. I don't know what I'm doing. So I emailed all the people who were registered for my camp, and I said, look, I'm just going to try this thing. I don't know how it's going to go. I want to try and do this online. If you're in, just let me know. And so what I did was I told the people who were registered that if they wanted to try the online class, they could have 2 weeks of online class for the price that they paid for 1 week of spring break camp, which I thought was only fair.
Yeah.
Since it probably it's not going to be the same amount of hours.
Yeah. Right. And you were
like
still
spring
working
break camp
things
is
out.
all day, and I was still working things out. I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I thought that seemed very fair. And I really am so grateful for all the people who like just trusted me on this. And you know, I've lived here most of my life, and I have people who've been sending their kids to my classes for years and years. And I'm so grateful that I have that, because otherwise this would have never worked at all.
Because they trusted you.
Yeah, they trusted me, and they were willing to take that chance and say, all right, if we're keeping our kids home, they may as well be doing something. And if you can make this work, then we're going to be a part of like your inaugural, you know, your trial run.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of those people. I've improved since then, by the way. So every week is built around a different theme, and all the art projects are built around that theme too. Now, I'm not a super big fan of themes in a school setting, but for this, it works a lot better.
So I noticed when I looked at what you do that it seemed like what you do is more project-based and not as directed. So how are you handling that going online? Have you changed the way you're teaching things? Do I have that right, that things are more project-based?
Essentially, yeah. And really a lot of children like my regular, you know, before COVID classes, because I was much more of an open choice philosophy. So every child was working on their own project. One kid over here was doing watercolor. I had another kid on a stained glass project. This one's building a robot. That one's working with hot felt, and they're all doing different things all at the same time, and they're all kind of inspiring each other and getting what they but still getting what they need without it being a lesson, you know. But it just doesn't work. It doesn't translate online. You can't 12 on your screen all doing something different. It's more like a tab philosophy where I've got different stations. So I've got like the paper as a station, and I've got like the drawing material station and the paint station and clay and all that. And kids are going to whichever station they need at any given time.
Okay.
But at home, you're not going to have all those different kinds of materials. You're not always going to be able to think it out in advance to know what you're going to need. And it needs to be directed. So I'm trying to balance directed, project-based art with creative, some amount of choice, and open creativity. I think really my big thing is that I want kids to still stay creative and to have their minds engaged. I think that's going to be especially difficult through right now, because they've got March, April, May, June, July, August. I mean, it might be 6 to 7 months before they're back in a classroom. That's a really huge gap to not stay engaged.
And if huge.
Yeah, and if a child gets used to not staying engaged, what's going to happen 6, 7 months from now when they need to sit back in their chair and focus?
Right.
You know, you want to give your kids something that will keep them thinking and creative, making those brain connections and all the
Mm-hmm.
things that you would normally just take for granted in a school situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I can't be with the kids, and I can't conference with them individually, and um, I can't always see what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know how kids, they have the iPad or whatever on their face, and you can see from like here up,
Yeah.
but you can't see their table.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
So unless they hold it up, you have really no idea how they're doing with the project, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yep.
And so you can't really help them as much, and it's a little bit frustrating in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's
So,
frustrating for you or for them?
it's really maybe more for me.
Yeah.
um,
The
I'm
same.
trying to encourage the kids to like hold up their paper
Mm-hmm.
or their sculpture, but a lot of times it's hard because things are dripping, or I don't want them to ruin it just by holding it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of kids, they don't know how to take their iPad off the holder, like point
Yeah.
it the other direction.
Yeah.
And you can't really expect a lot of little kids to be doing that
Mm-mm.
anyways.
Mm-mm.
So sometimes I'm just taking a guess, and sometimes I don't ever see the whole class what they're up to. That I don't
Mm-hmm.
see it at all.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm hoping that they are understanding what I want them to understand.
Yeah. Well, I think you're probably doing the best you can given the
Yeah,
situation.
we're all doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I haven't had any complaints. They are kind of having a good time for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's frustrating to not be able to comment, help them on their work when they need
Mm-hmm.
it, because I can't see where they're at. And
Yeah.
I'm not walking like usually in a classroom. I'm, like you do in a library. You're walking
Mm-hmm.
around. You're saying,
Sure.
"Oh, you want to try this?" Or "How
Mm-hmm.
about putting this here?" Or "Looks great like that." Or I'm always commenting and
Mm-hmm.
encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get as much of that with
Yeah.
the online teaching.
Yeah.
I am doing it differently, but still keeping a lot of creative freedom in the project. Well, I want it to be fun,
Mm-hmm.
interactive, and enjoyable, and I want to keep the frustrations to a minimum. So
Mm-hmm.
I try and avoid things that I know kids are going to need extra hand holding, or extra finger help, like tying
Mm-hmm.
knots. And most of my kids are around 7,
Yeah.
8, in that range
Mm-hmm.
too, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. That's a great age.
And I love that age. They're still
Yeah.
super creative, but they have better
Yeah.
hand skills.
Yeah.
So you can, so cutting is not a big issue. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are really good at yarn and
Mm-hmm.
wrapping and things like that, and you don't have to take that out of a project because they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Did kind of a crash course on Zoom, and I
Mm-hmm.
took the projects that I was going to do for spring break camp and retooled them some to make them a little easier to manage online.
Yep.
And I gathered up, like I took a big trip to Michael's, which was still open at that point, and I think I might have spent like $300 or something like that. I delivered a bag to everybody's house and just ran this camp. And there were definitely some glitches and some things that I have improved on since then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, learning about how to manage my own materials. So I've gotten better at that. I feel like I've gotten better on the pacing, so things aren't too rushed or
Yeah.
too much lag time. You really
Yeah.
have to measure it better when you're doing it online, because if you say you're going to run an hour class, your class really does need to be an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because someone else may need the computer or the device or the bandwidth on their Wi-Fi.
Right.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that your projects don't take 30 minutes or they don't take an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really think it through a lot more, because
Yeah.
when you're in the classroom, you can always continue it the next day. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be an hour from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you don't want it to be half an hour. You don't want to have 30 minutes, and then all the kids are like, yeah, I'm done. You
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
had that at libraries, too.
Well, it's easier at the libraries. I mean, we have a game that we play with the kids
Uh-huh.
for every kid who finishes early, and it's always a new game to them because they don't see us all the time. We have our standard thing that we do. It's different. We've only taught, tomorrow's our second library workshop, so we haven't really had to deal with the early finisher thing a whole lot yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know, we're going to kind of deal with that on the fly, just
Right.
extensions on what we're doing.
And a lot of the parents said, yeah, we just want to keep going with this thing. So I thought, all right, I'll just keep going with it. I couldn't go, I wasn't working at my school anymore.
Right.
I also teach at a local community center, which had at that point closed. So I couldn't have my classes there. And
Yeah.
I didn't have much else to do, frankly. So I thought, why don't I just try this and see how it goes?
Yeah.
So then they all wanted to continue. And then I thought, well, why don't I just open this up to other people too, now that I'm pretty confident that I can make it work. And so I have an email list because, like you do, I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of years, and just sent out an email and opened it up to whoever wanted to join, and a bunch of other people wanted to join. And then it's a word of mouth thing, so that kid tells that kid, and that mom tells that mom, and all of a sudden you get 3 full classes a day, and it's like, okay, this is actually working out pretty well.
So you're doing 3 a day?
So I'm doing 3 a day.
Wow. 12 kids each class?
And it depends. I mean, some are more than others. Just this week, I'm thinking about I decided to offer a once a week class instead of an everyday class too.
Yep,
just to try it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm always just kind of trying new formats and stuff. And I had a full class of 14 kids just this afternoon in the once a week class.
And what time of day are you finding is the best for families?
Early afternoon.
Yep.
Most definitely is the most popular time. I mean, I feel like I have a 2:00 slot that fills up. I mean, it fills up so fast. I feel like I need to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't get too big.
Can I ask you how much you're charging families for the week and for the day?
So it's $35 a kid for the afternoon, and this includes supplies too. So I really curate my supplies. I don't just like put a bunch of markers and paper in a box and call it a day. I mean, I'm real specific about what I give the kids, and I like to give them quality things and different interesting things than they can get just at like Target or something like that.
Yep.
So I curate these supplies, and it takes me a while to curate the supplies and to pack all the bags. I'm sure you've probably come across that same thing.
Yeah, we haven't done supplies. We've been trying to focus on things that most people have around, and we did a survey of the people on our email list, and people have a lot of stuff in their house.
If you're doing every day during the week, it's $125 for the whole week.
Oh, okay. So $35 is for
just a single day.
A single day, okay. With materials included for an hour class.
Right, for an hour class. So how are you guys working it? Because you usually offer your classes for free.
Well,
the library is paying you.
They pay us.
But the library is not paying you now, are they? To do
no,
this
they are.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Well, so for this year, they have a budget every year. So this year, the budget is kind of set for the most part. I had one librarian cancel something in August because she said, the budget is going to contract. So we're gonna skip that class. I really don't know what's going to happen this summer. We have, over 30 workshops scheduled, and
oh wow,
I don't know. So, but we have scheduled 5 classes with libraries so far. We're charging less. Usually we charge $250 for an hour and a half workshop with materials, 1 teacher. Now we're charging $150 for 15 kids, same amount of kids. But we don't provide any materials. We really just show up and we teach it. And both of us are on the call. So it goes pretty smoothly. So we don't have to deal with materials. So that's a big piece of it. and we
That
don't
is
have
a
to drive
huge
there.
that is a huge piece
Yeah.
of the puzzle is the
Yeah.
materials. Materials cost money, but they
Yeah.
also cost money to get together.
Mm-hmm.
I spend, the vast majority of my weekends
Prepping.
prepping,
Mm-hmm.
cutting paper and counting out
Yeah.
googly eyes and
Right.
all the same things that you've probably done too,
Mm-hmm.
and packing them all in a bag. And
I think it's harder now too because there's so much technology in most people's homes that the
mm,
kids may be zoning out on that and not necessarily, if it were 30 years ago, you'd be outside digging in the dirt or
but
doing something like
can you
that.
imagine if this happened 30 years ago? We wouldn't have Zoom. We wouldn't
No.
have nobody would know what's going on anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if one's better than the other, but I think that for some kids, there's going to be the tendency to just be on the computer or the device or play games with
Hmm.
their friends, which is fine, but it might, I would imagine, sometimes become unbalanced, especially
Yeah.
as the parents working. They don't necessarily have time to think of something for their kid to do, or they just need them to be quiet because they have to work. I'm sure a lot of people are in that situation.
I have two kids, but they're in their 20s right now,
Yeah.
and I can't even go there in my head to bring myself back to a time when they were little and
Yeah.
I was having to get work done and
Yeah.
dinner and whatever else is
Yeah.
going on in my household. And there were a lot of crazy days back then.
Mhm.
And if I had this thing on top of it where the kids were home all the time and they couldn't go
Yeah.
anywhere, I don't know what I would do.
No,
I
I don't know
mean,
either.
props to you, props to all of you who
Yeah.
parents with small children who are
Mhm.
making it work.
Yeah. It's not me either. I have a 16-year-old and a 21-year-old, and
I
I
don't know
am
how they do it.
thankful.
How do they do it? How do they do it, Lisa?
So now when I first talked to you, you were just on the cusp of, thinking, well, I don't know if you were on the cusp of it, but you were going to go on the road and start teaching on the road, like in a van.
So
And
I've had this dream for years that I
yeah.
want to teach and travel because I love to travel. I
Hmm.
love traveling. Um, my son and I, when he was still in high school and junior high school, we would go on road trips every summer because I was a teacher, so I had the summer off.
Yep.
And we would go, sometimes we would take like an 8-week road trip all over the place. And we
Wow.
had so much fun. And we've been to every contiguous state.
Hmm.
And, and I just love to travel. I love the little small towns where you can find the weirdest stuff
Yeah.
ever. But the funnest part is going through these small towns because they've
Yeah.
got like the biggest artichoke or
Right.
a giant ball of yarn or something. I don't know. It's the weirdest stuff. And then you'll come upon like a state fair. I heard in January my school was closing, and I thought,
Hmm.
well, this is like kind of my sign from the universe to sort of go forward on this teaching and traveling thing.
Yeah.
So I was talking to some friends of mine and reached out to you, Lisa, and a couple other people that I knew online who I thought could give me some good advice about
Hmm.
how to make this work.
Hmm.
How to travel from city to city to city and teach
Yeah.
all at the same time. Where do I start? How does the supplies work? Do I stay in a place for a while or do I move around? There's so
Hmm.
many logistics that
Yeah.
that need to happen before I can do this kind of thing. And then yeah, so I'm getting ready to plan that whole thing out, and then all of a sudden this shows up, and nobody's traveling, nobody's going anywhere. You can't essentially leave your state, no less,
Yeah.
your house. And so once again, I think I'm going to need to put that whole thing on hold, and try this instead. But this is actually, I think, really a great way for me to lead up to traveling, because
Hmm.
whether it's next summer or the summer after or the year, whenever
Hmm.
whenever it comes time that we can travel so much more freely and not
Yeah.
worry about getting sick or getting
Hmm.
other people sick,
Hmm.
I think teaching online would be a fabulous thing for me to keep doing into
Yeah.
that future.
Yeah.
So I could be there in my you know, my RV teaching online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great addition to
At the same time as I say, you know, go over to a local art center, or like we were
right.
talking, like a campground or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, and teach
Mm-hmm.
there too. So
Yeah.
I could actually combine what I'm learning now with
Mm-hmm.
what I'm planning to do in the future.
I think for us too, it's going to expand how we earn money. It's another place
Yeah.
that we can go to teach. And
Exactly.
it's not somewhere we would have gone on our own.
Not voluntarily. Nope.
Right.
Nope.
Right.
No, I was very like, I still, I mean, this is working for me technology wise, but I still don't feel like technology and I are good buddies. This is probably not something I would have jumped into had it not been for the pandemic. You know, I think as creative people, we have the advantage because we can pivot so quickly in our heads. You know, we're like you said, we're all used to it. We're all we've been in a classroom situation, and teachers, if you're a teacher, you know that you are thinking creatively every day, you know, not just art teachers. I mean, if you're a math teacher or whatever kind of teacher you are, you're always thinking about new stuff, and your mind is always running with different thoughts and different ways to engage your kids. I think we have the advantage over companies who are like, well, you know, we've always done it this way, so we're just going to keep doing it this way. That's not gonna work anymore.
Nothing ever goes the way you think it's going to go, or the way you imagine it. It's just always something that, you know, maybe you have that one class once a week where you're like, wow, that was great. You know, it was the best class I ever taught. But then there's other stuff that comes up, you know.
Exactly. And we just naturally think that way. We're natural creative thinkers, all of us teachers. And I've done some work, like, you know, just personal work, like every morning, just to try and get my my mind in the right space to do this, because it's not the same space that I've ever been in before, just from a mental health perspective, you know. And like I decided I want to start at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock's my first class, because I wanted a couple hours just to wake up slowly and to not have to rush out the door like I would, like I had to be at my school at like 7:45 or 7. That's pretty early, you know.
Yeah.
Is that when school started? You know, school starts at like 8:15, and I'm like, but
so
now, now that's kind of nice that we don't have to do that. But it gives me a couple hours in the morning to just relax and prepare myself to be fun and joyful and patient.
Right.
And even more so because I feel like these additional challenges of teaching online are a little, you know, can be slightly stressful. Whereas I've been teaching 20 years in a classroom. I could teach in a classroom. You know, you feel like you can do it in your sleep after a while, even though it's constantly challenging and we're constantly pivoting. We're so comfortable in that situation. You get so used to it. So, so that's something I'm working on too, just from a personal perspective, just trying to get that headspace right to do this every day.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking me on here. I feel so honored.
Well, I think your story is really interesting. Like I said,
maybe one day I can travel and teach. Maybe. Come on.
You will. You will.
And I'm looking at this as an opportunity too. I'm looking at this as an opportunity to add to my skill set, so that when I do travel and teach, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2, maybe it's less, I don't really know. And when I do travel and teach, I'll have this skill and I'll be pretty good at it, and just can add that to what I offer.
Right. Yeah, it's all going to work out in the end.
Oh, that's a great attitude. That's a great attitude.
It does.
I like it. Okay. Super. So thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye. It was good talking to you. you're not teaching at your school right now, right? You're doing you had a break camp going on, like a spring break camp. And so you turned
Yeah, so
that
this all
into,
started,
and what's your setup like? Do you have, yeah, I mean, it hasn't affected me health-wise or anyone I know health-wise. We've been lucky that way so far.
yeah, you
So
are.
I'm trying to look at it like an opportunity. You know, like I got laid off from my job, which is a part-time job. But I'm trying to look at it like, you know, this is a good thing. This is something we can keep doing in the future. Janelle and we've put out like dozens of YouTube videos, which
Right.
gone in that direction big time. We've just been making a ton of videos. So I actually really enjoy doing it.
You know, if you've been teaching long enough,
Yeah.
you can pivot pretty quickly during a class if something is missing, or say a kid doesn't have a set of markers or whatever. You know, you can pivot your project to in colored pencils or whatever they happen to have in their house.
Yeah, we're trying to think about that ahead of time. You know, like because we give the materials
trying
list.
to think about that ahead of time too.
Yeah, and it's like if you don't have this, well, then you can use this. If you don't have that, then you can use this. And if you're still having problems, email us and let us know. We'll try to think of something else.
Right.
But I think our brains are so used to that because a lot of art teachers don't have a huge budget, so they're always trying to figure out how to do it with less money and with less materials. And, you know, depending on your situation, you might practice that every single time you put together an art lesson.